I believe that SEI is a must-have in my portfolio. And not only is the reason because hypothetically, I think that SEI could go to the price of $20 during this bull run, but I think there's going to be a big narrative, especially for something that is allegedly the world's fastest parallel blockchain, which again, SEI allegedly is. And when it comes to this, again, it's a no-brainer for me to have that in my portfolio, even though that's not financial advice. But the numbers, they really do speak for themselves because, a lot of its competitors, they say this, they say that, but really the numbers are complete caca. But again, this one isn't. For instance, take a look at the transaction finality time of, let's say, Ethereum. That's 6 minutes long. Now, people may think, okay, that's not bad. You take a look at Bitcoin, it's around 60 minutes. So this is amazing. But that's actually something that is not that great in my opinion, because you take a look at, for instance, Solana on the flip side, again, its transaction finality time is around 2.5 seconds. Now, that is very amazing, by the way, but you want to know something that takes things to a whole different level? That is something called SEI, because, for instance, SEI is just 380 milliseconds, which is less than half a second. I mean, porra, caralho. That's very impressive right there. I mean, you got to think about just how amazing SEI is to have that amazing of a figure, again, less than half a second. Man, this right here, again, is what SEI is all about. It's about breaking barriers. It's about being an absolute amazing project. Now, not to mention, you take a look at, again, it can facilitate 12,500 transactions per second, which is insane, by the way. And it's even been able to process over 1 billion transactions. So when you think about it, the numbers, they do speak for themselves. Some people out there, they like to say that, oh yeah, again, this blockchain's amazing, all this type of stuff. Well, again, in terms of pure figures, SEI is fantastic. It's like the Usain Bolt of projects, in my opinion, because you take a look at Usain Bolt, it's very fast. SEI, it's very fast. Now, people may argue that, okay, these other projects out there, they have a better ecosystem. They'd say that, oh, the fundamentals are better and all this type of stuff. Well, in terms of fundamentals, what they mean by that, if they mean by fans, if they mean by, the amount of projects, I'll give it that. But in terms of pure statistics, SEI is just an absolute, beast of a project, in my opinion. Now, not to mention, if you take a look at something like BNB, right? People like to say that, oh, BNB is amazing. Well, I just don't get this, because you take a look at the BNB smart chain ecosystem. Even back in 2023, according to Crypto.com research, slightly over 2% of the crypto hacks that happened that year actually occurred on the BNB smart chain ecosystem. So people may think at first glance, let's say, okay, that's actually not that bad because 2%, it's kind of a small figure. But when you consider just how massive the crypto space is overall, this is like a very bad figure, in my opinion. I mean, if it was like less than 0.5%, okay, I get it. But over 2, that's a little bit too much, in my opinion. Now, not to mention, if you take a look at something like, for instance, Ethereum, sky-high gas fees, it's arguably not even scalable. Now, there are Ethereum Layer 2s out there that kind of fixes this type of nonsense, and I'm bullish on some Ethereum Layer 2s, and I do believe Ethereum still has a bright future, but it can't be denied that, again, Ethereum does have these problems, which you don't see with SEI. Not to mention, you take a look at Solana. Now, people like to praise Solana, and don't get me wrong, I think Solana is amazing. I think it's very fantastic overall, but there's also a flaw. You take a look at, for instance, Solana, at one point, it did experience allegedly 8 network outages in just a time span of a year. Now, people may think that, okay, that's not that bad, but when you think about it, that's almost once a year. If you take a look at on the flip side, something like the VeChain Thor blockchain, by the way, which I'm very bullish on VeChain, but again, the VeChain Thor blockchain, ever since 2018, experienced 0 network outages. So when you think about it, this is very unacceptable for something like Solana. You don't see that with the VeChain Thor blockchain. Also, you don't see any of this type of nonsense with SEI. Now, why did I use VeChain as an example? It's because people would argue it's a more established project, which is why I use that. But then still, even despite that, SEI, it doesn't have any of these unreliability issues, in my opinion. And also, not to mention, people like to say, oh, SEI's not going to do well because the adoption is caca. Well, I disagree with that, because you take a look at Solana. Does Solana have good adoption? In my opinion, no, because yes, there's a lot of fans, there's a lot of hype, but if you actually take a look at its ecosystem, what is primarily on the Solana ecosystem? It's primarily meme coins. At least that's what it's known for, right? I'm not saying that literally, meme coins are going to dominate every project, because not every single project on Solana is a meme coin, but at least the perceived adoption when it comes to Solana is for meme coins. Especially when people take a look at that, they're like, oh yeah, it's a bunch of meme coins. That doesn't mean that it's good adoption, in my opinion. Sure, there's something like Jupiter on Solana. Sometimes people talk about the Pith network. Sometimes they talk about, Render, which did move to, quite essentially Solana from Ethereum. But even besides that point, people don't usually mention that type of stuff. They usually talk about meme coins, right? Like Book a Meme. They talk about Maneki. They talk about Wen. They talk about, a bunch of meme coins on there. So when you think about it, when it comes to something like, SEI, it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs good adoption in its current form. It just needs anticipated adoption, because typically in the world of cryptocurrencies, people care about what something could be as opposed to what it already is. They care about the narrative, because if they cared so much about adoption, then something like Solana wouldn't really be where it is as of right now. But again, it's still one of the biggest projects as of right now. So when you think about it, again, people usually care about the perceived adoption, because Solana, many people think that it's going to have great adoption in the future. And when it comes to SEI, I don't know why people wouldn't think the same way during a fully fledged bull run, because again, it has the potential to be even better than Solana, in my opinion, because of course, it doesn't have the problems that Solana has. At least that's the way I view it. Now, not to mention, people like to say that, okay, SEI, $20 is ridiculous, but I'll disagree with that, because if SEI were to go to the price of $20, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $84 billion. And again, that's actually not too bad in my opinion. If we saw BNB reach over $100 billion in market cap, and we all know how I feel about that, right? I talked about it earlier in the video. Again, if that could reach over 100 billion, SEI can at least go to around 84 billion. I mean, that's just the way to take a look at it. Not to mention as well, if you take a look at SEI, it's currently being supported by giants like Circle, which is the creator of USDC, pretty much one of the biggest stable coins of all time. So yeah, that's amazing. Also, it's being supported by Coinbase, which is one of the biggest exchanges as of right now. So when you think about that, this is how impressive SEI is. Not to mention, you take a look at the AI and DeFi ecosystem on SEI, which is very impressive. No, it's not the best, I would say, but it's heading up there. And when there's something foundationally as amazing as SEI, I don't see why this wouldn't be the choice for many more AI and DeFi projects to come in the future, but only time will tell. Now, as the old saying goes, a high tide raises all ships. There's currently over 600 million crypto owners, according to Crypto.com research. That's more than ever before in history. Not to mention, you take a look at, even according to Charles Hoskinson, based on a video that he was a part of back in November, and by the way, Charles is the co-founder of Ethereum and the founder of Cardano, he does predict that in the next 1 to 2 years, he could very well see Bitcoin reaching anywhere between $250,000, so that's 250,000, all the way up to $500,000. So that's insane. If Bitcoin, let's say, just goes to 250,000, even at that point, $20 for SEI may seem a little bit bearish in my opinion, but it's only a time will tell type of scenario. I think 2025 is really going to be the time to shine, but of course, again, it's just a waiting game. In the meantime, I'm going to still be acquiring SEI anytime on income, again, acquiring more SEI, holding and just waiting, because that's quite frankly the only thing I can control. And when I see a project this amazing, I'm going to stick by that. And I do believe that even beyond the price of $5, like let's say SEI does go to the price of $5, I think at that point, the growth could be exponential, because at that point, right, after $5 has been reached, people are like, okay, $10 is 2x away. And at that point, $10 to $20 doesn't seem that difficult. And we've seen this happen time and time again. Take a look at Cardano's native token called ADA. One point was a little bit kaka, hovering around 3 cents, went to the price of $1, but that was very difficult. But then going from the price to $2 from then, and then eventually $3, it didn't feel too difficult. It felt like the growth was exponential. So when it comes to SEI, yeah, I just don't see why hypothetically the same thing won't happen if it were to, reach $5. But you know what? Only time will tell, and I'm very bullish on SEI, and it's a must-have in my portfolio because, again, $20 wouldn't surprise me whatsoever during this bull run. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's Malik the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm a peace. Bye.